to a conference here in the United States, they're all U.S. citizens, made the mistake of praying in the airport, scared passengers, they wanted to get on the plane, they wouldn't let them on the plane. That happens all the time. If you look Muslim and you try to get on the plane, if anybody's afraid or scared or worried, often you get visits from security and they talk to you and stuff, but a lot of times they pull people off just because of the fear that's going on. And I really feel like the media perpetrates this fear. If they would provide the Islamic viewpoint and share how we really feel about terrorism and these acts of radical Muslims, which are less than 1% in the Muslim world, then I think everybody would feel more at ease. Okay, we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here, but I want to talk about civil liberties real quick. Last year in 2006, the United States passed legislation that takes away the diamond ring of our constitutional rights, which is habeas corpus. Now what that means is that if I send my money to a Muslim charity and the government decides, for instance, that they don't like what they're doing, and I don't even know what they're doing with the money, but I'm assuming, let's just say I have a good intention, I think they're giving it to orphans or something, or I'm just Muslim and they're going to round me up. They can come to my house in the middle of the night, take me out of the house without telling anybody, put me in jail indefinitely, without a lawyer, without my right to see the charges. And I'm a U.S. citizen, and so this scares me to death. I think that this will probably continue until we have some horror stories. And then maybe we'll get our legislation changed back. Also, thanks to Gonzales, we now have the right to torture U.S. citizens. And our current methods, which are not considered torture, really are mental torture, as with Jose Padillo, who no longer is there mentally. Haliburton last year was granted $385 million in the United States to build, does anybody know? Yeah, concentration camps. I figure they're either for Mexican immigrants, they're for the Muslims, or they're for if we have an epidemic outbreak of some sort. But anyway, I'm concerned because anytime the government is building just concentration camps, I am concerned. And you can Google that by typing in Haliburton and detention camps. And then, of course, as I stated, many Muslims have been illegally detained for long periods of time. So tonight, I'm not asking you for sympathy. This is a trial that we're going through right now. It's God's will, and we're working through our trial. But I do want you to leave with two messages. The first message is we denounce terrorism. There's no place for it in our religion. And the second message is I'm very concerned about our civil liberties, and you should be too, because it's your friend down the street or you that it's going to happen to next. This is the scariest event I can think of in American history, is for us to lose our civil liberties. So at this time, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the race of people known as the Khazars?
I am not.
You might want to Google that. It's Khazars.
Okay.
Check that out.
Okay.
And if you look up a fellow by the name of Benjamin J. Friedman, F-R-E-E-D-M-A-N. Type in plus Willard Hotel. You'll read a speech that he made. It's very informative as to the events that are happening in the world today.
Okay. I'll have to get that from you afterwards, because I won't remember it.
Well, a lot of times we hear on the media that Muslims are trying to Islamicize the world and whatnot, and that I think a lot of times we hear about these people who are talking about acts of violence, these fatahs and things like that they want, that they say kill Americans. And I mean, you said radical Islam is less than 1%. Then what exactly has happened to our embassies and things like that? Do you think that were acts of Muslims, or do you think that also might be false flag operations and that type of thing? What is the general feeling of people of the Muslim population also?
You might Google USS Liberty also in 1967.
Well, I do believe in false flag operations. I also feel that in certain parts of the world, when dominant party comes in and tries to take over your culture, and if the dominant party, Russia, came into the United States and tried to take over here, you would have people fighting back. And so I think some people respond in that way because they do, they realize that they're being occupied, but they also realize sometimes they have no choice in what's happening and they want to lash out and retaliate. I think the funniest thing I've heard this year is the president of Pakistan, what's his name? Bashar. He was on a TV show and he said, no, I didn't want to help the United States, but when President Bush calls and says he's going to bomb your country, you don't have any choice to do it. And it was brutally honest, and I thought at the same time it was very funny, because when you do have a dominant power coming in, you're going to have hostile feelings. We would feel the same way.
What is the feeling about 9/11 among Muslims? Are they aware or cognizant, or do they feel like it was other Muslims who did that, or are they aware of the fact that there's a lot of anomalies and a lot of unanswered questions?
I think the majority of Muslims feel like it was Muslims who did it, but they certainly weren't practicing Muslims, that they were people whose hearts were filled with hate. And I actually noticed after September 11th, there's two types of people. There's those people with love who want to work towards peace, who want to work towards dialogue and understanding and making this world a better place, and there's those who just want to go out and lash. We had a lot of acts of violence directly after September 11th here locally. And I think that those people who went out and hurt Muslims are no different than the Muslims who, crashed the planes into the World Trade Centers, which is hateful mentalities. Yes?
Do you believe that the Muslims that crashed the planes actually were aware of what they were doing? Or
I don't know.
What do you don't
I don't know. I have tried to read transcripts, and of course and the calls that people make from the plane and all that. I've done a lot of research, and actually when I first found out about the 9/11 stuff, I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was so upset. I can't say. I think some of it's very strange and it doesn't make sense. They said they were Muslims, but they went to a strip club and drank alcohol and did very un-Islamic things the night before. So.
Well, but they say that there was a drill going on that day, and that perhaps the planes may have been steered by remote control.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you think about
Well, I know that the Air Force, some of the Air Force colonels that have reviewed the plane trajectory that went into the Pentagon said it's absolutely impossible for somebody who's flown years to fly a plane at that level, at that angle, and zoom right into the Pentagon. It's an impossible feat.
I think that the media is so controlled, and that's not just, it's television, it's what's in print. I think that everybody should be aware that it's controlled and use discernment to try to go within and see what really is real and true, because the picture that we're being given is the one they want us to have, and not what's real.
Yeah, I find that I read the news journals from all over the world and get their perspective. Asian Times is a nice one to read online too.
So one more thing, a friend of mine that I grew up with just got back from Iraq. He didn't fight over there, but he worked over there. And he said that the things that happen over there and what we see on the news are two different things.
Oh yeah. If you think about the reporting of the Vietnam War and the battling and the things that we saw, then we're not seeing any of that even today. Yes?
Great questions. Let's give Allison a round of applause.